Lie still and break, for a dream's sake. Chapter 3. After that, it seems that Shota never stops talking. Midoriya is definitely not a slacker, or a bore, or a gossip. He's observant, he's smart, he's engaged. He has a way of just putting things together that sometimes reminds Shota of Nezu, and, a clear difference with most of the students Shota's taught, Midoriya gives him his full attention. And Shota finds that he likes this. He likes distracting the kid from a gruesome ER scene by asking him to count how many nurses are wearing purple scrubs today. He likes interrupting a moment when Midoriya is stuck in his head, among unfriendly thoughts, by quizzing him with an ethical dilemma. He likes rambling about heroics law to cover up the noise of the dumb TV Hisashi left on to try to stimulate Shota's brain. How Hisashi ever thought reality TV would do anything but cause Shota's brain to rot, he doesn't know. But perhaps his friend hoped Shota's vindication would be enough to get him to wake. Sometimes, Shota turns the tables. He asks Midoriya questions, quizzes him on what they've learned, challenges his arguments, and pushes him. And the kid never protests. Still, Shota takes care not to push in areas where he's unsure of his footing. On the second morning, when Shota comes out of his room after a short break, exasperated, and deeply touched, by the amount of gifts delivered from UA, he catches sight of the kid across the corridor. He's surprised to see a forlorn look on Midoriya's face, and following his eyes, he glimpses a hint of long green hair ducking inside the room across from Shota's. A parent, then. Midoriya catches him looking, and ambles over. He swallows and croaks. Go ahead, kid. Whatever you need. Midoriya ducks his head and slips inside his own room. Shota doesn't come out of his until Midoriya comes to fetch him, and if there are tear tracks on his half-translucent face, well, it's not Shota's place to comment. The law is clear. You can't use your quirk without a license except in legitimate defense. Even if you do have a license, all heroes have to abide by the principle of proportionate response. Do you know what that means? There's a lot that falls under situational awareness. Being able to read a room, being able to tell what a person feels, picking up on little details. It all feeds into a picture. It gives you information, and that information can save lives. Shota fights back a smile at Midoriya's star-struck expression. Anyone can develop their situational awareness with simple exercises and constant practice. Want to try one? How many exits here, Midoriya? Meanwhile, underground heroes collaborate with the police and use CIs more often than not. CI stands for Confidential Informant. They're a source of intel on crimes and villains. Most often they go to the heroes because they don't want, or can't, come forward with the knowledge without getting in legal trouble themselves. CIs are invaluable for any underground hero, but they can be iffy. Sometimes they blur the lines between villain, civilian, and vigilante. And they always have an agenda. Think about this. Say you've got a healing quirk and you have a dying man in front of you. I said it before, the law is clear. If you don't have a license, you can't use your quirk. Do you save him anyway? Now you see why most people choose a profession where their quirk can help the most. A lot of people wish to stay within the bounds of the law, but we're still human. Thankfully, the courts are usually reasonable when an illegal quirk usage leads to lives being saved. Where do you want to go today, Sensei? The alley? It's been a day and night since Shota awoke in the in-between, and he misses patrol. He misses the liberty that comes from swinging from roofs and jumping down into alleyways, from pounding the pavement and keeping people safe. He misses the sky. You haven't shown me the roof. How does that sound? The roof? Midoriya stands, stunned. Okay, Sensei? They climb upwards, using the stairs, as best as ghosts can use stairs. Midoriya stays uncharacteristically silent on the way up. They phase through the door to the rooftop. Shota strolls a few paces before realizing the kid has stayed behind. Midoriya? Right, go ahead, Sensei. Shota crosses the wide space and seats himself against the roof's parapet, where he can trail lazy clouds in the bright blue sky. He can almost imagine the caress of wind on his face. Kid? The kid stays standing in the middle of the rooftop. He's tense, for some reason. His eyes dart to the edge, and he remains right where he is. His hands fist in the sides of his shirt. Aizawa-sensei? What does a quirkless person do with their lives? Random question to ask so suddenly. Is he trying to distract himself from the heights? Had Shota made a mistake asking him to show him the rooftop? Still, he said he'd teach the kid, and this question's important. Shota leans his elbows on his crossed knees. What does a quirkless person do with their lives? Whatever they want. Shota sees the skepticism in the kid's face, and he modulates, skirts closer to reality. Well, whatever they want within the bounds of what society allows them to do. He sighs. Again, the kid's eyes stray to the edge of the rooftop. Get on with that distraction, Shota. Midoriya, he calls softly. When the kid's eyes focus on him, he continues. Society is illogical when it comes to the quirkless. In my third-year hero ethics class, I actually give an assignment. You don't have access to a library, do you? No, just the hospitals. Even if I did, books are too heavy for us to handle, Sensei. Pity. What's the assignment about? Quirkless heroes. The kid's jaw nearly hits the floor. There aren't any quirkless heroes. There are. Plenty, Midoriya. Doctors, policemen, lawyers, construction workers. A lot of people who go into a profession without a quirk, but who do it well and who are kind. Shota wonders why the kid looks so doubtful. Ever heard of Diet member Minamoto Sayuri? Midoriya shakes his head mutely. His eyes are distant, guarded. She was responsible for passing the law that made quirk discrimination illegal. She was quirkless herself, you know. Really? Mm-hmm. But there aren't quirkless heroes, though, right? Officially, not in Japan. But elsewhere in the world, yes. I'm no expert, but there are a few famous ones. Arsène in France, Kuratimi in Burkina, I think Oda in Canada. The kid's eyes are wide. Are his parents anti-quirkless then, for him to be so convinced that the quirkless couldn't be heroes? And in Japan, there are some quirkless vigilantes. And there are heroes whose quirks aren't technically combative. Those fight without a quirk. Like who? Shota gives him a flat look. Seeing incomprehension on Midoriya's face, he gives an aggravated sigh and slowly points at himself. What? Shh, Midoriya, we're in a hospital. Shota cuts himself off. The kid giggles. Shota's heart warms. It's the first time he's heard Midoriya laugh. And finally, the kid sidles nearer and sits. He's still staying well away from the edge of the roof, but Shota doesn't mind. Not everyone's comfortable with heights. You fight quirkless, Midoriya murmurs. It's hard for Shota to tell what he's thinking. That is so cool. Odd, Shota frowns. Why does he find it cool if he grew up anti-quirkless? But then, Shota has to dismiss the illogicality as Midoriya speaks again. I wish I'd met you sooner, Sensei. Shota's heart gives a tug. I'm sorry, Midoriya. It must have been really lonely all this time. Yeah. The kid's face is downcast, his voice full of tears. It really was. End of Chapter 3. Podfic's notes. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this. I personally am really fond of this chapter. I love how the outsider point of view gives us a glimpse into how Shota and Izuku's relationship is progressing. But as the outside POV, we have this maybe slightly more context about the things that Izuku's saying and the undertones here that Shota maybe isn't quite picking up yet. And it's angsty and delicious, and I love it. If you enjoyed this chapter, please let the original author know. If you enjoyed listening to me read this, please let me know.